So if you're watching this video, chances are you want to know how to change your rear upper control arms on your 2003 to 2009, aka 4th gen Toyota 4Runner. And lucky for you, I'll be doing just that. The process itself really isn't that bad. It's just a matter of jacking up the car, removing the old ones, putting the new ones in, lowering the car, torquing them down. But again, everything always sounds easier in thought and always takes longer in reality. Alright, so the tools you're going to need is as follows: 17 and 19 millimeter sockets. 19 you may need, you'll see why in the video, but regardless you should have the deep and the shorter ones. Same thing with the wrenches, 17 and 19 millimeter. If you have the non-ratcheting or ratcheting, that's up to you. I just have both and I use them for different reasons, you'll see why. Swivel socket, very helpful. Various extensions, I have 3, 5, and 10-inch ones. Those seem to work pretty well. And then you're going to need a 21 millimeter socket for your lug nuts. Torque wrench for sure. Ratcheting wrench definitely when you're tightening them. Impact wrench is really helpful in this case when I was loosening them because they were really stuck. They didn't break, but they were just really stuck. If you don't have the impact wrench, break a bar. Hammer and a chisel, you most likely will need them, but you may or may not, you'll see. And of course you need your new upper control arms and or reused hardware. And I'm recording this after I put the new ones in, so I don't have the new ones to show you, but you should be seeing a picture right now and that has the new ones next to it. Alright, so once you have the car supported on the frame itself and not via the differential, you should be able to access your upper control arms. You can't support the car's weight on the differential because you need it to drop down in order to access the upper control arms better. So we have the left rear upper control arm and the right rear upper control arm. So you have a bolt and a nut here, and the same thing over here. You have a bolt over there and a nut on this side. It might not be a bad idea to take a wire brush and just get off some excess rust, any flakes on there. Then some rust penetrant never hurt. Let that sit for a few minutes. Alright, so next up, the nut over here, you're going to put a 17 millimeter wrench on there. I have the closed end over there. And just, you know, with the wrench on here, when you start taking off the bolt, it may hit this control arm. And if you don't have the wrench on here, the bolt may just keep spinning and spinning. So then, now we're going to put a 17 millimeter socket on the bolt side over here. Except I'll be using a 17 millimeter socket with a swivel head and a 10-inch extension. That way I can use my impact socket from the side of the vehicle. Might have to give it a few taps, especially if it's rusted like mine. And so you can see from this side, I have the socket right here on the bolt. And then I'll be putting my impact over here. So it looks like you missed that. Stuck on there and it took a lot of that impact. Looked like it got loose. Looked like it loosened all right. Now I can wiggle it back and forth. And just be careful of the brake lines. Like right now I have the wrench angled this way, so it's going under the control arm. Otherwise it'd come out this way because of the offset and it'd be touching the brake lines. Looks like I'm gonna have to hold the wrench with one hand while the other hand takes it off. And if you don't have the impact wrench, use a breaker bar with 2 people. Don't know how well you saw that, but it looked like it started smoking, probably because of the rust penetrant got a little hot. All that friction. There we go. Yep, nut's still in there. Socket's pretty hot. Ooh, so is that wrench. Alright, so let's just see if we could pry it out now. By it I mean the bolt. So if you can see, let's see. There you go, see? Came out. This side have the washer. Still warm. Second thought, since this control arm is pushing down, learn by my mistakes, people. I would not take the bolt out completely until you loosen the other side. Otherwise, this thing is going to be pushing down hard on the gas tank. Not something I thought of before. Don't forget to take the washer off. Ooh, all the rust that came off, nasty. All right, so now we got the more rear bolt. Of course, just take a little metal brush, get any loose rust off. And don't be surprised if you can't get the bolt off if you have to cut it using an angle grinder, or most likely a reciprocating saw inside here. Cut the bolts here and here, and then you could just pull it off and the ends come out. Not the most fun thing, but be prepared. Let that sit for a few minutes, or overnight if you have the time to do it overnight. Alright, so now we have the same thing as before. We have the 17mm nut. I'm gonna put my wrench on there. And then we got the 17mm socket on the impact wrench. Just here, earring protection, and watch out for where this wrench goes. Oh, I got hot quick. But it's off, as you saw. And now it's loose, so let's take that one out. That's not bad. Washer came off. I saw the nut come off. Oh, here it is. Ooh, that's hot. So, bolt, nut, still burning hot. I'm touching it to show you what I do for you people. And then the washer. Alright, then you could just pull it out. Note the orientation. And yeah, that's why I'm replacing it. I mean, the entire car could go, but... And so now, I'm just going to be cleaning up the area. Well, actually, I'm going to remove the other side, the right side, and then I'm going to clean up this area a little bit. Wow. And so you can see, this is the left rear upper control arm, and this is the orientation it was. Bolt, washer, nut, both sides. Alright, so for the right rear upper control arm, same thing. Got the nut, washer, bolt, and then this is the more rear one. Bolt, nut, washer, same as the other side. So like before, take the wire brush, try to get off some loose flakes. So when you're putting the open-ended wrench, and this is not ratcheting like before, this is just standard, on the nut, when you turn it to left, it's probably going to go straight into the exhaust system, so you're going to want to hold that for sure so it doesn't just go flying into it and create a dent. Definitely want to make sure that that the socket's on that bolt, otherwise it's going to strip it out. It's not going to be a fun day for you. And so you can get a better view. Socket, swivel, and then I have the 10-inch on the impact socket. Yeah, pretty rusty, pretty nasty. Well, there we go. Yeah, so I couldn't take off the bolt with my socket, so I took off the nut. And in seriousness, probably best taking off the nut, but I don't know, that bolt wouldn't move. I mean, looks good now. Now I'll loosen the other side, and I could just take it right off. And be careful of that wrench pushing your fingers into it, squeezing it. Nothing broke, thank God. It's a first. Working on a car like this, something always breaks. Got bolts. Nut came off. And then same thing over here. And now we could just push the bolts through. Hammer it through, something like that. Just like before. Back of the pry bar, why not? I'm actually going to get a hammer. If you're going to use a punch to knock out a bolt, make sure it's tapered, otherwise you're going to bend it. One bolt down. I really do think the hardest part about any job on your car involves, just a good place to put that, taking the pieces off, because things break. Oh, nothing works. Whew, okay. So that's off. Yeah, that thing's got rusted. It broke off before I did anything. Just too rusted. Anyways. Wow, that's pretty bad. And there you go. That's the second one out. Now what's left is for me to do some stuff over here. By stuff, I just mean trying to remove some rust, make it a little cleaner, and then I'll put on the new ones. Alright, so this is my old one and this is the new one. This is a Dorman product control arm, and it has this point on it to attach something, but I but the original one didn't have it, so I'm going to cut it off because I don't like how it looks or sits when it's replaced. This is probably a general control arm used for various cars. It is the right one for this car too, but if you see the hook right there, I'm afraid that it may catch on to the brake line and pull it, so I'm going to cut it off. Use a handsaw, angle grinder, whatever you got. I don't want to keep it on. Alright, so now we're ready to put the driver's side on. And again, I'm using the Dorman product. The driver's side is 524-573. So first, I'm just going to slide the bolts in. And I'm using the OEM bolt from Toyota. I ordered those. And don't forget your washer. Then the nut. And this nut is not the OEM nut, it's a higher grade nut I got from the hardware store. So I'll be using a 19mm for that. But the OEM nut and bolt are both 17mm. Alright, so now I'm going to use a tapered punch to help align this better. And to help line it up, might have to give it some love taps. Huh. Looks almost lined up, but it ain't. There we go. Perfect. And if you don't have a floor jack, just use the included jack in the car. Gonna put that washer on, and then the nut. Cool. All right, so don't forget the nut and the washer. So remember, I have a 19mm nut on here, but if you get the OEM one, or maybe the same grade as this, then it might be 17mm. However, this nut is 19mm, but the bolt is the OEM from Toyota, so that's still 17. So I just have a 17mm socket on a ratchet, and then I have the 19mm to hold this nut. Pretty tight. Same thing over here. It's on there pretty tight. Pretty tight. Give you a different angle for this one. Alright, so that one's good too. Next up, just have to torque them down. Alright, so now all the bolts are in, and they're relatively tight, but I'm going to torque them down just a bit, pretty soon. And remember, for the bolt, at least how it was before I took the original ones out, the bolts go inwards, starting from the outside of the vehicle, so the nuts themselves are on the inner part of the vehicle. Same thing here, nuts on the inside. But don't forget your washers on the nut side. So if you really want, torque down the bolts to 59 foot-pounds right now. However, being that this is a suspension part, and specifically in a control arm, it is best to torque them down while the car is in its normal driving position. In other words, when the weight is on the car, and the car's weight is on the ground, and this whole back part, differential, is pushed up. So that way you're not going to ruin the bushings when you torque them down, and then they move when they're torqued down, and then, yeah. So I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this, but the car is on the ground, and on the right side I have the wrench. Where's my finger? Right there. The wrench, the 19mm, because I have the 19mm nut on the nut side, and then I have my torque wrench set to 59 foot-pounds with a, I believe it's a 10-inch extension and the 17 millimeter socket on it. So it kind of makes like an L shape. So it's just very hard to hold the camera in this very not so spacious area. There we go, finally. Whew. 59 foot-pounds. £59 foot-pounds. Well, that's easier. Good. Here I'm directly under the car doing this. Awesome. That clicked. There we go. Just enough to swing. You have to come from the back to do this. Unless your torque wrench has a lower arc before it clicks. Almost there. Not almost there. There we go, finally. Well, those are all torqued. But it's possible to do while it's on the ground, so as long as you can fit under here. So that's everything I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I would highly recommend you check out the description before you ask any questions, because there are some links and information about everything here. So check that out before, and if you have any questions, let me know. See you on the next one.